You to the Insurance Committee meeting, House Insurance Committee meeting this morning. Before we get started, Representative Tarvin, would you please say a word of prayer for us?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your presence. We ask for wisdom and guidance as we take on the business of the people of Georgia. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good morning. Welcome to all of you. We have three bills on the agenda this morning. A couple of these we've already heard and need to follow up. First up, I'm going to Representative Gamble. Are you ready to go? Since you're there, let's just go ahead.
And Mr. Chairman, I've asked Elizabeth Nunez from the Department of Insurance to come and join me this morning.
She may do so, please.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. It's good to see everybody this morning. And you have before you House Bill 893, which is an agency bill that will clean up a little situation that has been brought to our attention with regard to the collection of the premium fee for the Special Fraud Fund.
This is LC number 460193, correct?
That is correct, yes,
All right.
sir.
Very good.
And basically, the short of it is this. Due to budget constraints and administration at the department, the fee is currently in law to be assessed quarterly through the year. It has not been being collected quarterly. It's being collected annually for quite a number of years. And so the agency has requested to, just from a procedural standpoint and administration standpoint, and from the standpoint of auditing, that we allow a change that would create a scenario where we collect the fee annually versus quarterly. So it's still the same amount of money that will be collected. It's just basically changing the law to reflect the current practice at the department. And so Ms. Nunez is here with us this morning, and she can elaborate on any of the specifics that I might not have covered, or definitely answer any questions that you may have about this particular issue.
Anything you would like to share with us at this time, Ms.
Yeah,
Nunez?
this is just a cleanup bill, really. It's just to align, like the representative said, it's just to align the code with the regulation. And obviously, the code is higher hierarchy than the regulation is, but we've been doing it since the inception. The code was 1997. The regulation was put in place in 1997.
And this is a department bill, Department of Insurance bill. All right, very good. Any questions from the committee? Don't see any questions. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make a comment regarding this bill? No one signed up, I see. All right, committee. We have a due pass and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Your bill passes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right. Next bill up, Representative Rick Williams, House Bill 842.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee.
We're working from LC 460213, is that correct?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
Very good.
Come to present this great day that I've...
And before we get started, I believe we also have an amendment. If you'll notice on the back of your bill, there is an amendment, AM 460247, just correcting one word regarding the court. So just want to make that note for the committee members.
Okay. I don't have a copy of that one, Mr. Chairman.
All right, sir.
But if I could just work off the other one. And I printed some flyers and handed them out to you. This, as I explained before, this is named after Gracie Noble, little girl that's in my district, one of my constituents, and she was, thank you. And it's just to make sure that no one is discriminated against if they're born with a mental or physical disability, that they still have a quality life and that they can receive an organ transplant, and it's to make sure that they're not moved down the line and discriminated against. You know, we had the Americans for Disability Act of 1990, and it addressed this, but nationally and on the federal level, but nothing has been introduced on the state level. And this is just putting something into effect on the state level. And as you see on the flyers, a number of other states have already enacted the same law. And the reason for the word correcting from district court to superior court is because this was copied and from Louisiana. They had a bill, this law passed last year in Louisiana, so we just duplicated that bill. So I'll be glad to take any questions.
We have a question, 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask a question that is kind of tangential to this, which is the state of Georgia actually has the first person whose organ was transplanted who is living with HIV. And so are there any conversations that you've had about some of that same discrimination that happens for people living with HIV?
No, this, and that may already be covered under some other law, I'm not sure. But I know this stems from a little girl being born with Down syndrome. And in some countries now, they're actually, the doctors are advising families to terminate the pregnancy when they know that the child has Down syndrome. So, you know, this is one step in that direction. This does not cover, and I had the question asked of me if this covered alcoholism. It does not. This is for mental or physical born disabilities. People have long felt like people born with Down syndrome or some other disability had a less quality of life. And this is to make sure that they're not discriminated against. Thank you for your question. I hope I answered it.
Representative Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Williams, for your work on this particular bill. Can you tell me what has happened in other states regarding those who are in violation? Have there been any lawsuits, and what has been the remedy?
I don't know of any remedy that has been done. Of course, when discrimination like that takes place, it's usually not documented very well, so it's usually pretty hard to, come up with and to know the answer to that. I don't have that information. It's possible that it's out there. I just don't have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You just mentioned, so I'm familiar with how the process works. Usually a board will get together and decide who is the best candidate from a list to receive an organ. And for example, if you have had heavy drug use in your life, you probably are not going to be at the top of the list to receive an organ that you may be on a list that, you say you need. But you just mentioned something about that this is the first step in dissuading people from what does this have to do with terminating pregnancies?
No, this,
because I think the bill makes sense where I think
Right.
doctors would see if you have a disability, they just probably would think that you might have a shorter lifespan. Maybe let's give that organ to somebody who doesn't have those same challenges. That part makes sense, but what you just said really doesn't. I don't see how it's connected.
It doesn't. It's not actually connected to this bill. That is another bill and another step for later. And I think it was in Australia that a law was passed. And so, I'd rather not get into that at this time. Maybe I can explain that to you on another time. This is just dealing with children, people born with a physical or mental handicap, making sure they're not discriminated against.
Right, so it's nothing to do with this bill?
No, nothing to do with
Okay.
this bill.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one further question. So would you be open to looking into the conversation around those living with HIV? Because, you know, what we experienced here is the person who's born Georgian, you know, active member of her community, young woman, she actually had to go to Boston in order to be able to do that. And it was groundbreaking news last year. So, you know, with the organizations you're working on, and it seems like you're interested in reproductive health, would you be, you know, open to some conversations around that as well?
Certainly. By all means, I'll be glad to have any discussions with you on that. I
Thank
sure
you.
will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do not see any other questions from the committee. We have one person signed up to speak. David Tatum, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm David Tatum with Children's Healthcare in Atlanta. Children's is the organization formed in 1998 by the merger of Eggleston Children's Hospital, Scottish Rite Children's Medical Center. We also operate the Marcus Autism Center, and we've managed the Hugh Spalding Children's Hospital for the Grady System since 2006. We are the place in Georgia that does the overwhelming number of pediatric solid organ transplants. We've done over 500 liver transplants on kids, 350 hearts, and 675 kidneys, and we fully support this legislation. Representative Williams contacted me back in the fall, sent me some proposed draft language, told me the backstory with the young lady who is his constituent. I took that to our transplant team. We have never heard of anyone using this as a criteria, Down syndrome in particular, nor could we find anything in the literature. But it's disturbing that someone would tell the parents of a Down syndrome child that they were not a candidate for a heart transplant simply because they had Down syndrome. That is absolutely false and not the case. And if it takes legislation to reinforce that, then we're all for it. I had the opportunity to meet Gracie a couple of weeks ago when her and her family were at the Capitol, just a delightful little 1-year-old girl. So we support this bill.
Any questions of the presenter? See none?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, what's the will of the committee?
Mr. Chairman, do we need to adopt the amendment first?
Okay, do that. What's the will of the committee concerning the amendment?
Move on AM 460247 amendment to change the line 137 from district to superior. Move on that amendment.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now we go to the bill itself, and what is the will of the committee?
Move to pass.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and committee. May God bless you, and thank you so much on behalf of the Nobles family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we have one bill left. That is House Bill 583. Noel Williams, if you would, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm talking about a bill that was in the Senate last year, and we thought we were going to have it passed, and there were some hiccups that happened, and we made a few adjustments to it since we previously met 2 weeks ago. I'm talking about LC 460276S. I'm going to talk about a few highlights of this bill, and then I've got an expert that wanted to speak on behalf of this passage of this bill as well, if it so pleases. Basically, the travel insurance industry is trying to better protect our consumers. Travel insurance does not always fit easily into standard interpretations of current insurance laws. Challenges include, among other things, how insurance products are filed, how individuals are licensed, and how claims are paid, most importantly. Specifically, the proposed legislation is going to establish uniform meaning of key terms. It's going to regulate the travel industry in a forward-looking manner by clarifying sales practices and the application of states' unfair trade practice laws. We're going to prohibit the practice of opt-out sales, and it's going to impose explicit consumer disclosures in addition to what the state's insurance law otherwise mandates. This is going to provide travel insurance may be sold via individual or group or blanket policies, and it's going to specify how premium taxes are to be calculated. It's going to clarify in most cases travel insurance must be filed as an inland marine line of insurance and fall under the auspices of the insurance department. The insurance department is good with this. 2 weeks ago after we met, I had about 6 different organizations in my office wanting to make sure everything was fine-tuned. And with that being said, I would like to call John Fielding up to go over any details that I left out.
Mr. Fielding here, if you would please come to the, he can come to the table there with you as well.
Yeah, you start here.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Representative Williams, thanks very much for introducing this bill, and thank you for considering it. Just by way of background a little bit, travel insurance is a little different from other lines of insurance like homeowners and auto and things like that. It's a limited line of insurance that protects against just insurance losses while you're traveling. So you're covered if you lose your luggage, you're covered if your trip gets canceled, or if you get sick while traveling. It's not major medical coverage. It helps you when you're sick to deal with those issues and get you home. It's generally offered with non-insurance services like translation services, lost passport assistance, things like that. So you're abroad or out of the country or something, and you need some help putting things together. You go to the hospital, you need a translation service to help you communicate, that sort of thing. The legislation is necessary because it creates a framework specifically for travel. Travel has been regulated forever. It's subject to insurance code and regulations just like any other line of coverage. But what this does is clarify the law and regulations specifically for travel in those specific areas that Representative Williams talked about, where travel is a little different and needs some particular attention. The legislation is based substantially on an identical model acts adopted by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners and the National Conference of Insurance Legislators. It's in place in a number of states already, and there's many more who are working on it this year. It's built off legislation that you enacted a few years ago regarding the licensing of travel insurance producers, so those who sell coverage. I can't remember, it was 3 or 4 years ago maybe that you enacted some legislation, model legislation based to deal with that issue, and this is built around that. As Representative Williams noted, it addresses issues like bundling services, insurance and non-insurance services together, filing it as inland marine. These practices have been widely accepted by regulators for years, and what this does is it codifies those practices. So it specifically clarifies them for travel. It specifically says, yes, this practice that's been engaged in that we've been allowing happen is okay going forward. It deals with premium tax allocation. It does not change any premium tax rates or anything. It just makes sure we know who has to pay the premium tax and to which state. For example, I live in Virginia. If my daughter lives down here, my mom lives in New Jersey, my daughter buys the policy here in Georgia, the tax is going to go to Georgia, even though I'm covered by it in another state. It deals with market practices like prohibiting opt-out, which Representative Williams says, and it adds numerous consumer disclosures. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. We think it's really good for consumers, for regulators, and for the industry that needs to comply. It puts everybody on the same page so we understand where we're at. And we urge you to adopt it, and thank you very much. Excuse me, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We have a question, Representative Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the information. I wanted to ask a question about some of the types of organizations that are specified in this bill, specifically on line 47. It says any religious organization.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about how this affects churches?
So this is the definition, of eligible groups. So travel insurance can be sold, I'm sorry I jumped in. I didn't know.
That's fine. Like in a church group, I think if they're going on a trip, you have some senior citizens or a youth group going on a trip, they would be eligible to purchase the travel insurance through the church group.
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is later on in the bill. Line 234. It discusses the requirements of this subsection applying to any resident of this state. What does resident mean? What does that have to do with undocumented people, illegal aliens? Can you speak to what resident means versus, of
Okay.
course, citizen?
It would be any resident of Georgia who purchases the policy. So the intent of the law is to cover, so we're not talking citizens or non-citizens. We're talking the residents, because the insurance department would be responsible for protecting all the residents of Georgia, no matter what the citizenship. So if I'm visiting here, if I'm a long-term resident, if I'm a short-term resident, I would go to the insurance department if I had a complaint, for instance, and they would be able to sort of impose the consumer protections under the bill.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question. So in that process, you're basically saying if someone is undocumented, they live in the state of Georgia, they purchase travel insurance, something happens, in that situation, they would be able to go to the commissioner. How would they be proving residency? What is the insurance commissioner process on that?
I'm not able to answer that question. I don't know what the insurance department does to prove residency, but in my experience across the states, what usually this is the way insurance laws generally are applied in the states. In other words, they are intended to protect the residents of the state, as opposed to a resident of North Carolina or a resident of Virginia. They protect the residents of Georgia. So if I live in Virginia, if I were to file a complaint or go to the insurance department in Virginia, they would ask me, I suppose, where I live and so forth, and the company that I'm having the issue with, or the producer that I'm having the issue with. But I've never heard of any department that gets into the issue of whether someone's a resident or a citizen or not undocumented.
Okay.
So
Thank
this would have nothing to do with that aspect of the
If
relationship.
they buy the insurance, they would be covered
Okay.
regardless.
And Mr. Chair, just one final question. Just I'm not familiar with the last two lines of the bill. And so it becomes effective upon approval by the governor, or it's becoming law without such approval. That just means whether he signs the bill or not. If there's a bill signing or not, it goes in. I'm just not familiar with that language.
Basically, if we pass this bill and pass it out of the House and pass it out of the Senate, of course, assuming the governor signs it, then it will become law.
Well, it says, or upon its becoming law without such approval.
Well, if he doesn't
Sorry.
sign it, then it becomes law, in so many days.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your questions.
Representative Carson.
Thank you, Representative Williams and Industry for bringing this. You had mentioned something just a moment ago, and I apologize for hearing only part of it, but you mentioned something about opt-out sales. Can you talk about that piece in regard to the bill?
Sure.
Sure. In some cases in the past, for example, on maybe a airline website, you scroll through, you're purchasing your ticket, and they would automatically enroll you in travel insurance. That's illegal at the federal level right now. That's called opt-out. You have to opt out in order to not buy the travel insurance. So you were automatically enrolled in it, you automatically had to pay it. It was really not a good practice.
Sure.
The federal government outlawed it. Many states have specifically outlawed it. The practice is no longer engaged in by the travel insurance industry because it's outlawed at the federal level. And what this does is it says, it's outlawed in Georgia too, you can't do it.
We're basically codifying in Georgia that it's illegal.
Correct.
Okay. My second question was in regard to lines 245 to 255. This is basically the premium tax calculation. This just refers back to Chapter 33, 3384, the premium tax calculation. Without getting completely into the specifics, this does matter quite a bit because a number of local governments get a share of premium tax based on wherever that taxing address is. And I'm just wondering, to your example, I was confused, and you just mentioned 3 addresses between your daughter and you and so forth. But let me ask you, can you walk through a scenario of where that premium tax is allocated for a policy that is purchased? Let's say I go to, we're in Atlanta, so I'm going to say delta.com, and I live in Roswell. But it's unincorporated, it's in the Cobb County portion. So if I buy travel insurance with that address, with an address for a debit card or credit card that is elsewhere, how does that premium tax get allocated and calculated?
It would go to your county of residence. So it would.
So
go
it
to-
works
would
just
go to
like a-
both the state and whichever taxing authority, local jurisdiction receives the tax.
Okay, so it just refers back to Title 33. It just refers the same way a car or a home policy would. Okay,
Correct.
great.
And
Thank
it's
you.
the primary policyholder. I'm sorry if I was confusing you earlier, but it's the primary policyholder. So you would be the primary policyholder if you were the purchaser of the coverage.
So let's say I wanted to buy airfare and travel insurance, and I'm bearing the cost, and it's the traveler is somebody that lives in LaGrange or what have you. How would that work?
If you were the purchaser, then it would go to the tax would go to your jurisdiction and the state, of course.
To the purchase. Okay,
The one paying it, yeah. The one paying.
great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at line 228. I compared it to the prior version, and I noticed that the prior version had this section marked out, yet this section is back in. Can you tell me the reason you marked it out and now you placed it back in, dealing with the unfair trade practices from 228 to 232?
I believe that's just a clarification to make sure that it's clear that the Unfair Trade Practices Act generally applies to all of travel insurance, just as it applies to other lines of insurance. But these provisions in here, there's some clarifications, for example, the opt-out issue that specifically apply to travel, and that's the intent of what comes after that. But I believe that that's why that was in there, and I'm sorry, I can't recall the previous version where it was out of there.
Yes,
but
it was marked out.
But my sense is that perhaps folks take another look at it and thought, well, that should be in there to make sure that clarification is there.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Gamble.
At the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Do not believe we have anyone signed up to speak on this particular bill. If not, then now is the appropriate time.
I move that we pass HB 583 LC 460276S.
Have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Bill passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.